to the show. Feeling well. I'm Ralph, and I'm here today with
Lloyd. Hey, how's it going, guys?
Fuck, this is the second episode in a row where I try to say here today with, and I trip over my words. Anyway, we got our first guest ever here, Oliver Lee Bateman.
What's up?
Oliver, welcome. Great to have you.
Welcome. Glad to be here.
Yes. So Oliver is a big muscles man. He has big, beautiful muscles, but he also wears glasses and writes articles.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those.
Imagine that.
It's just a beautiful convergence of ideals from different sides.
And many of the articles are about similarly muscled men. I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Oliver, is this true?
It's accurate. I mean, the Atlantic asked me to write an article that was basically about the convergence of wearing glasses and being muscled. Remember, that's really what the article's about.
So I want to ask you some specific stuff, but before that, I'm going to immediately make you wait because just something that happened today that I just want to address on the pod before I forget. I want to offer a public apology to someone, if that's all right.
It's fine with me.
And maybe maybe you and Lloyd can weigh in to say how wrong I was or not. So yesterday I tweeted something that I've since deleted. I tweeted, so apparently I need, quote, 2 letters of references to certify my good character, end quote, to buy a gun in New Cuck City. So who likes to write? So I tweeted that. And what I presume is that if you know me, you know that the joke there, first of all, you know that it's a joke. And you know that the joke is like, I made it really sound like I was looking into buying a gun. Which like kind of reflects funnily on my persona.
Sure.
Like the joke is like I'm ironically making it seem like I'm an authentically unhinged person who might do something
increasing
horrible.
Desperation and kind of building towards this crescendo.
Yes.
And
Oliver, you get that? You get that.
Oh, I do. These things happen.
Yeah.
So, but people got mad at you.
Well, I got a text from one person, a friend of mine, and she said, Ralph, why are you trying to buy a gun? She texted me. And I was trolling a little bit. I said, what's wrong with guns? And she said, I just want to know why, that's all. And I said, it was a joke tweet. And she said, Ralph, I have to know that you're not going to buy a gun. Plus, I don't get what's funny. And then I said, I'm not buying a gun. I tried to explain the joke. And this makes me sad because I like to think that my friends don't think that I'm like actually insane and capable of murdering people.
I mean, we talked about this last week, because you do have these moments when you kind of just feel this deep, unsettling rage. But that is why we have waiting periods, I suppose, so that simmering rage can kind of...
Wait, so you don't think I would actually ever...
I don't think. I think
why would you say that?
I think you'd punch someone. I think you'd start a confrontation in the street if somebody pissed you off. But I don't think that you'd do like a premeditated.
Well, why'd you mention
murder.
the waiting period thing?
Because you can't.
I would never in a million years buy a gun.
Like you can't like get mad, go to a gun store, buy a gun, and then act on that immediately. You can't just kind of in a mist of rage do that.
I wouldn't endeavor to do that in the first place. I would never even want to do that. Okay. So you're not even convinced?
No. I like. Hey. You're taking that out of context, Ralph. I'm just saying.
How you should have responded to me was like, no, Ralph, I know, you're just kidding. Obviously, you would never even consider buying a gun. But your response was, look, waiting periods exist for a reason.
I think your best self, your baseline self.
On my worst day, I would never even consider buying a gun.
Well, sure.
My
but
God.
Who can say where
really
the depths of rage can bring us?
I really have to reevaluate my life.
I'm not saying one thing or the other, Ralph.
Well, anyway, I followed up today. I have like a toy gun that's like a leftover prop from a movie I made, and I just texted her a picture of me holding that gun.
Oh my God.
But then I said, I'm joking. And then she said, do I really have to explain to you why this isn't funny? And I said, I'm sorry. And then she said, I'll always remember this. She said, please, I beg you, stop it. So your posts are good when the feedback is a 100% earnest. Oh. Please, I beg you, stop it.
Oh.
But I mean, come on. And also, like, I've hung out with her before, and, I make jokes about 9/11, and she tries to, like, sneak in these little things like, hey, I really think you should go to the World Trade Center Museum. I was like, oh, I guess I could. I've never been. I'm like, why? And she was like, well, I just feel like it would really make you appreciate the gravity. It's like, I know 9/11 was bad. I know better. That's why it's funny to me. And let me ask you this. Would an at-risk person start a podcast?
I don't think so. Not a red flag.
Podcasters are some of the most well-adjusted people in the world.
We are, just enjoying this time together.
But, yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry to have alarmed you, Carol, but everyone agrees that I'm perfectly normal and that I'm having a normal one. Anyway,
what do you think, Oliver? Is this fine?
I think that Ralph, I'd like to prescribe 6 or 7 more viewings of Nanette for you so that you stop making jokes. Okay, because that's not cool. You got to do the work.
I got some growing to do for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a growth moment. Do better.
So, Oliver, you and I met under fairly unusual circumstances. I met you technically in Vienna, but we spent the majority of our time in Bratislava, Slovakia, and then later Cannes. I don't want to divulge too much about my place of work yet on the podcast, though I know it fascinates you. But in short, Oliver was traveling with me and the company I work for to potentially write something about my boss involving stem cell science and whatnot. But anyway, we wound up on a yacht with Lindsay Lohan.
Yep, that's right. It's a big deal. Big time.
Yeah. Because like my boss is kind of this, this socialite, I guess, and one of his rich friends. We went on the yacht, and I was supposed to take pictures, and I was just kind of sitting, not doing my job at a table. And I think for that reason, and because I was relatively young, Lindsay Lohan falsely presumed that I must have been an important person because she came up and said hello to me.
Oh.
She walked up to me and extended her hand and said, "Hi, I'm Lindsay," and I was like, "Oh, hello,"
Oh my goodness.
And then that's when I peaked on Instagram and got my selfie. But
that's right, a selfie. Yeah, I mean, you were the tallest man on the boat at that time.
Thank you. Thank you for that compliment.
Yeah, anytime.
So, where to begin with you, Oliver?
Did you meet Lindsay, Oliver? Did you?
I was there. She sat across from me. There wasn't much to say.
Okay.
She smoked a cigarette.
Cool.
He's being modest. Oliver and I both fucked her, actually.
Ran a train, as you might say.
So the last time I saw you was at a magazine launch party here in New York.
Media gathering, a millennial media gathering.
That's right. For Mel Magazine. Are you still involved with Mel?
Yeah. I haven't done a piece for them in about a month, but that's my own fault. They're actually wanting the content, and I've just fallen behind due to my very boring day job. But yes, very much involved with them. I'm actually a contributing editor with them now rather than a contributing writer, but I have no idea what the distinction is.
I have to say, you tried to describe it to me at the time. I don't quite get what the theme of Mel is. You described it to me as a penis-themed magazine, and when I was there was like a lot of penis-shaped paraphernalia, and I wasn't sure what to make of it, but...
We were doing balloon art and the phallus balloon art that night. You were there, I was there. Lots of people trying to get work with this company.
Sure.
There. It was unusual, to say the least. There was a lot of pizza there and some alcohol. I don't know if it was good or bad. You could comment on that.
Well, I remember I got to meet your colleague who had recently written an article about jelking.
Yes.
Or whatever you would call attaching weights to your penis in order to elongate
Yeah,
it.
that guy, and he did it. He is a participatory journalist. So
he told me that he got like half a centimeter off it, that it actually worked. There's hope for us yet, Lloyd.
Wait, is that what jelking is? It's attaching weights to the end of your penis?
Jelking, I don't think is the weights. That's something else. Jelking, I think, is just like massage and exercises. But he did something involving weights to elongate his penis as a bit.
There's coaches for this type of work.
Yes.
And regained a bit of length, but not girth. You can't increase girth without implants.
Oh boy!
Yeah, and
injections.
And that's a whole. I would imagine that you don't want to mess around with the plumbing down there.
Ooh.
No, not if you. I guess it depends on what you're going to use it for, but probably not.
Yeah. So anyway.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sure. I was just going to say, just as a starting point, I may be misremembering this, and I'm not trying to blow up your spot, but the last time we hung out, I seem to remember you were trying to sell me on using steroids. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. I want to get everybody on those. But really, you're a fairly tall guy. You're really not doing yourself justice by not being on those.
Very true.
And, as many other folks, including the person you met who was 7 feet tall, can tell you, they're a big help. He's a longtime practitioner. Really helped his height. Helped fill him out. Well,
what's your stance? What's your stance on steroids in general? And are steroids synonymous with human growth hormone? That's another one of those.
No, two different chemicals. One simulates like androgenic, produces, raises testosterone levels. The other simulates like a hormone that is supposed to thicken bone, lengthen bone, etc. Both seem to have the consequence of raising cholesterol, raising blood pressure slightly. But if once you've taken to the needle, you don't. I don't think you're too concerned about that stuff anymore. It works wonders, especially in combination. The two things work wonders. And there's other like accessory drugs that you can throw in there, and people do. Asthma inhalers, these sorts of things.
So where do you stand on all this personally?
Oh, I'd never use them, not in a million years. I've always, I want to live to a ripe old age. That's the big joke about all of this. Like, I cover all these people, I lift alongside them, but I wouldn't touch that stuff in a million years. I mean, it's like to reach 80 or 90 and see how this all turns out. Is
it true it shrinks your balls?
Yes, supposedly so. I mean, it doesn't shrink the other thing, but it does shrink those. So that can actually, if you read Juiced by Jose Canseco, you learn that that's not a bad thing because it enhances the size of the other thing.
Oh boy. So what kind of turnaround are we talking? Like when you start using steroids, like how quickly do you start seeing results?
It depends on how big you are to begin with, what your diet's like, what your exercise is like. I mean, what they really allow you to do. I mean, what the additional secretion of or the artificial secretion of testosterone allows you to do is train more often.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's a common misconception. People assume that the steroids themselves bulk you up, but they really just kind of give you, I guess, the wherewithal to work out a lot, right?
They puff, and most of them will puff you up a little bit too. A lot of notorious steroid users, despite how cut they might appear, have very puffy faces, often like double and triple chins even. They're mainly just a way to increase the recovery phase. Growth hormone, as you've seen in your everyday work, Ralph, can actually improve your appearance without much exercise. And that's what I assume folks like Jeff Bezos, J.K. Simmons of Oz fame, and Dr. Dre are using.
Oh, you think Bezos is juicing?
Oh yeah, he's clearly juicing. I mean, look at. I mean, man has elbows the size of people's knuckles. And then suddenly, in his late 50s, he has his mid 50s or whatever, he has a growth spurt. So, I mean, yeah, it's kind of unusual.
So you think the hands are a tell?
Oh, yeah, joint size, the size of the person when they were like 30 is a tell. I mean, look at Hugh Jackman at age 28 and Hugh Jackman at age 45 or 50. It's day and night.
So how widespread do you think steroids are with like celebrities and shit?
Depending on the role, I think it's unavoidable nowadays. I don't think you can do one of those. I know you love the MCU. I think MCU, those are two of your favorites.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, we want the explosions to be CGI, but we want the muscles to be steroid induced. So, I guess.
That's probably going to change though with like the shit they use for like de-aging technology. They're probably just going to kind of reconfabulate people's bodies wholesale in movies with technology eventually. Yeah.
Ooh.
I mean, the actors would prefer that to the point where I guess they're retired and they don't have to act or get paid anymore.
Or even be alive.
Yeah, I don't need them.
No, I want to go back for a second.
I want to get Ron Reagan back in the movies. Get him in there. John Wayne, all the good ones. I don't need to see these new ones.
I want to see CGI Uncanny Valley Ronald Reagan suck off John Wayne.
Yes. Yeah, that's just a film. It's an art film.
Lloyd, you had a question?
Wait, so were you saying that, I had no idea about this, were you saying that anabolic steroids make you taller? Is that what you said?
No, they have no impact on that whatsoever. Growth hormone, however, can increase your glove size, your hat size, your shoe size. They're bony protrusions.
Oh.
Are going to grow.
Oh boy.
If you guys ever looked at the French angel, he looks like Shrek. It's a human being that had a natural growth hormone deficiency that kept his body produced far more than he needed. Another example, Andre the Giant. Right.
Okay.
These are people that had George Murison, who used to play for the Washington Bullets, back when they were called the Bullets and not the Wizards. All of these guys have these big bony Abe Lincoln faces, and that's Michael Phelps, the swimmer, supposedly suffers from acromegaly or Marfan syndrome or whatever you want to call it. And you can induce that in yourself if you take a lot of growth hormone. I mean, Barry Bonds went up almost a hat size during his baseball career.
Oof.
Yeah, and he's got like a huge ass head too.
Yeah, it'd be cool. He has like a size 8 hat now, and you could go from a size 7 to a size 8 hat. That would be a big deal. I think people would really like that. Big head, big shoes. People would think they're packing some heat down there.
Big head, big shoes, little balls, fucked up emotional chemistry.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the most you can hope for.
Yeah. I mean, you become much more exciting with all that stuff in play.
I'll say.
Do a lot of people use both? Is that fairly common?
If they can afford it. Yeah, a lot of people use as much as they can afford, and honestly, to me, I would definitely use if I could make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year off of the use. It would be fine. That would be a good cost-benefit analysis. What gets me is the class of people who are basically like hustling or prostituting themselves or whatever to pay for their steroid habit, which gives them nothing because they're not winning anything and they're not athletes and they just like big. It's very strange.
Like, how much is an average steroid regimen? Like, how much does that cost?
You can, if you do it on the cheap. I mean, you're thinking a couple $100 every 3 months if you have the right connections.
That's not that bad.
Oh no, some might be a couple grand a year, but a lot of the guys that are heavily into using steroids are also heavily into training, and that doesn't leave them a lot of time to be heavily into working or learning. So as a result, their income capacity, their income earning capacity might be a little lower, and you gotta make do. But now, if you're Dr. Dre, you can afford the Cadillac package. Constant blood tests.
Dr. Dre is definitely looking like an action figure these days. He's done
a great job. I mean, I don't know. He doesn't do anything with it. It's not like he's in films or anything, but he's really turned it around. He used to be kind of chubby. He was in those big.
Oh yes.
Tents. That had those real '90s, late '80s, early '90s fonts on them. But now he's always in tight long sleeve shirts.
No, yeah, he used to have what I call middle school chub for a long time, but he's remade himself as an uncanny valley muscles man. But Oliver, I'm forgetting the name of the term. I did no research for this, but isn't there like something that people refer to as like bigolemia or something, where it's like a form of body dysmorphia? I'm sorry.
Bigorexia. Yeah, the director, Vlad Yudin, a friend of mine, is coming out with a film. I guess it'll be on Netflix. You know how these films go straight to Netflix?
Yeah.
Those ones, the ones everybody loves, and they just watch them, and they're 90 minutes long. Yeah, he's doing a film on like the people that either can't lay off the steroids or can't stop injecting oil into their arms.
Oh no!
What is oil?
Oil just.
Yeah, people are creating tumors that.
What do you mean oil?
Yeah, site injection oil into muscles. That's like the next step.
But what is the oil?
It can be any type of oil. It can be cooking oil.
Well, like petrol?
Not petrol, but cooking oil, olive oil potentially.
No.
Any sort of oil.
Wouldn't that just kill you?
Like it would go rancid pretty quick.
If anybody's listening to this and they want to Google, I wrote about a Russian kid who. I didn't write about this part of it. He was still inflating himself when it happened, but they had to slice out the muscly tumors that resulted from these injections to save his life recently.
Jesus Christ!
They called him the Russian Popeye. So if you Google that, you'll see the surgery to remove his fake muscles. Because again, they don't make you any stronger. They just make sure that you're going to be like a back page feature.
That you just look bigger in a cartoonish fashion. And to be clear, just to restate it, so bigorexia basically the same principle as any other form of body dysmorphia. Someone who is never content no matter how thin they are. This is just someone who cannot be muscular enough.
That's right. They're the type of people who, in their minds, you need to be able to hear them coming long before you see them. They have to be that big.
Huh.
And I mean, it'd be interesting. I've always wondered what it would have been like to have bigorexia. I don't. I've always been, I was either fat as a kid and thus big enough, or in high school just large enough to do all the exercise things that you could do so that people wouldn't call you a wimp. So I never got to experience bigorexia or feeling weak or anything like that. It's kind of a shame. So I can't really access what they're thinking, but I guess it's interesting. It probably gives them something to do.
Well, I wonder what causes that, because the thing with, like, for it to be about getting bigger and bigger, like, you can only get so thin, but it's like, if you just want to get bigger and bigger, you're going to look like abnormal and like non-human. So like, what could possibly motivate someone to want to pursue that? But I guess it's just the same bug. Like, they don't see what you see.
I'd like to know what they do see. I mean, because you can get much bigger than you can get thinner. Because, eventually you're just going to be a bag of bones. Right?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's like, it's even more unnatural than being unnaturally thin. But I guess it's just the same principle. Like, they're seeing it with different eyes. It's just augmented by their psychology. But, yeah.
It must be fun. Like, you look in the mirror.
I'm sure it's very fun. Not at all a prison, yeah.
I'm almost perfect, you just every day. I do hear bits and pieces from talking to some of these folks. Like I interviewed this one IFBB pro bodybuilder who recently had his leg amputated, not due to that, but due to kidney issues that could have been related to drug abuse, steroid abuse. But in 2016, when I interviewed him, he told me, he was like, every day I look at old photos of myself and I think I'll never be that again. Like every day I'm getting further and further from that. I'm never going to come back. And then he came back the next year, and he looked pretty good. He looked better than he did the year before, but not as good as he did in his prime in the 90s. And then last year, he began having renal problems, and finally they had to amputate his leg.
Oh, my God.
Ooh.
So he's never going to look the same. And
well, he's going to be down one leg, but yeah.
Yeah, he's already down one leg. It's gone, So he's running a GoFundMe, or someone's running it for him. That's a big way to raise money for healthcare in the country.
Sure.
You go fund me some stuff, But yeah, I wonder what he thinks every day. Like, because you're going to hit a point. This guy explained to me he hit a point like in 1997 or 98 where he looked as good as anyone he's ever seen in his whole life.
Okay, what does good mean here?
I don't know. Just in terms of bodybuilding judging standards.
Sure. Okay.
He was saying. So he looked as good as anyone he believed has ever looked, but he still didn't win the Mr. Olympia. He never defeated Roddy Coleman. A lot of people thought he should have, but he never did. But in his mind, he looked as good as anyone who ever lived. How interesting that must be to think that for a brief period of time, you looked as good as anyone who ever lived.
You're a god. You're a god.
Yeah, you've ascended, but also to be a god and know that within weeks or months, your godhood can be taken from you.
Oliver, this is exactly how I feel every time I record this podcast. I pick up the mic, I put on the cans, and I think I'm a fucking god. I'm a divine supreme being on earth. And it's a big come down every time I close out the audition file. But
you peak. In that moment, you're in the zone.
I can feel that. I feel like I exist outside of history, I'm like Dr. Manhattan standing on the surface of the sun. I'm like, it's wild that no one else can recognize that I contain more power than anyone else in the universe. I am beyond a king. I am a podcast god. I'm a fucking, and I just marvel at myself. I'm a god. I
think you're accessing the mindset of this.
Yeah, I tap into something eternal and supreme and bright and blinding, and I understand that man, and how I think that man feels is that he looks down at his one legs and he thinks, and this is what he thinks. I'm going to tell you, as someone who feels a kinship with him, I think he thinks it was worth it.
I think he does.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Most of these guys, for 5 minutes, to be stronger than all of the army.
King for a day. King for a day is worth being a peg leg for the rest of your life. Take it from me,
Oliver. So to clarify, Mr. Universe, it's not like a strength competition. It's just like looking.
It's a pageant.
It's a pageant.
Yeah.
Pageant. Back in the day, Mr. America, which was one of the original of these competitions in the U.S., although there were earlier ones that were just sort of one-offs. But Mr. America, which was sponsored by the AAU, the thing that still sponsors, does youth basketball and all these sorts of things, the Amateur Athletic Union, would sponsor Mr. America, and the guys would have to compete in weightlifting, some kind of like powerlifting by 40 standards, and then actual muscle flexing.
Oh boy.
But by the 1950s, it was clear that the people only wanted to see, they were coming for the flexing. The largely male, almost 100% male viewing audience was coming for the flexing, not coming for the clean and jerk, not coming for the overhead press. And so, when Joe Weider broke away and started the Mr. Olympia under his International Federation of Bodybuilding, aegis, the thing was, we're going to just do the pageants. We're not going to have any more weights. We're not going to have any more powerlifting. We're just going to judge them on their body.
It's how close do they approximate that Herculean ideal?
Given that like no one alive when those like old myths were being created could have probably conceived of what they look like.
That's ironic and actually true. Yeah, because it's like no one had like that much access to like protein or whatever, and so it's like, yes, it is actually true that people are bigger than they've ever been, I guess.
It's like
in such a way that you people had seen ripped bodies in the good old days, the Greek and Roman days. I mean, people did exercise or mainly just did work in ways that were forced to sort of train them up in ways you could.
But to have a cosmetically precise muscular body is an extremely recent phenomenon.
Yeah, to be cut and like have that kind of muscle definition and not have the requisite layer of fat and the ideal male body.
I was just being engaging in a little literary color. You don't have to.
I'm sorry,
everyone doesn't
Ralph.
have to fact check me, but yes, that is true. Well, my only knowledge of this comes from the great documentary Pumping Iron, which introduced the world to Arnold Schwarzenegger, in which he describes, not only that he viewed his body basically as a canvas. I'm going to enlarge this muscle and that, but of course, famously talking about how exercising felt like coming, and that he was coming all the time, coming all day.
Oh yeah, a heavily scripted documentary, as the director's cut and all the retrospectives.
I think all the best ones are.
Yeah, and I think actually the fact that it was cut the way that it was, even if like the rivalries and battles and so on that you see in there weren't actually how they played out, I think it still captured the spirit of bodybuilding much more than just literally filming now. I think it captured the spirit of that weirdness.
The ecstatic truth of it, yeah.
We ate that up.
I mean, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen it?
Arnold Schwarzenegger is very charismatic. It's probably his best role ever.
Oh, he's a fucking star, dude. I love him in that movie.
He never reaches that level of charisma ever again.
A master troll. You know what I found out this week? Apparently last year, a movie that I assume went nowhere came out, I think about the founding of, I don't know what it was, but it's like about these two guys who are, I don't know, devising something like it was something about like them innovating something to do with bodybuilding, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is like a supporting character, like someone plays Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they have this like huge random actor who looks a lot like him but not quite, doing the voice and being in it. I was looking at clips on YouTube. I think it might be called Bigger is the name of this like completely ignored movie, but it is fucking uncanny as fuck, this guy playing Arnold Schwarzenegger. It is so weird and bad and wrong. But when you pump, to use their word, is it comparable to coming, to ejaculating, as Arnold says?
No, absolutely not.
Come on.
Not in the least.
Never? Maybe you're not pumping hard enough.
I can tell you what it is comparable to. I used to unload pallets from the back of trucks. And finishing up a workout is like finishing up unloading the pallets from the back of the truck.
So just pain.
Yeah, it was work. I mean, it was work. If you lifted right, you were still tired at the end. But yeah, I've never gotten any of the effects but then again, I'm not on any of the stuff that any of them are on. But I've never gotten any of the effects. I feel pretty healthy. I'm pretty still flexible at my age, still strong. But like, no, I've never finished a workout where I had that. I finished a workout and been like, man, I'm gonna sleep good tonight. And actually, sleep is preferable to anything for me right now.
So to be clear, no. When you do a set, it's not
Yes.
it's not orgasm like euphoria.
No, I
Okay.
don't think I have enough of an ego either. If I was more attracted to myself rather than like
That's probably a big part of it.
like that.
It's probably like Arnold getting turned on by himself is part
Yes.
of where that's coming from. Yeah, for sure.
I think for all of them, I think they would all love to ideally. I mean, regardless, sexuality is irrelevant. I think it's just a kind of. They would immediately marry their clone. They would, or something. They would cohabitate with their clone.
Oh yeah, and it's almost hack to say, but there's like clearly like like a homoerotic undercurrent to it all. But the people that they want to be homoerotic with is themselves. They want to fuck their imagined perfect self.
Or have it go the other way.
Again,
yeah.
like myself, I want to be two gods merging in the heavens. Two podcast moguls.
Oh boy. Yes, ideally.
Why Bezos hasn't tried to clone himself and raise
He probably
his
has.
child, and then one
Look at
day
Epstein.
take his child as his wife or husband.
Yes, yes.
It wouldn't matter.
He wants a Thanksgiving Day table of just his bald selves, and it ends with just a gratuitous orgy. Just all of them, just all of their beet red, shiny heads, just spasming into each other, thrusting,
God.
and just a lot of ejaculate and convulsing. And this is the future billionaires want.
That's right.
Billionaires
That's right.
want to clone themselves so they can have an orgy with themselves.
In my view.
I mean, what are you going to do with all the billions besides that? I mean, I know some of them want to clone their dogs or
Absolutely. Yeah, fuck that. No, I sympathize with that. It's like if you had that much money, eventually you'd be like, why am I not cloning myself to fuck myself? Yeah.
no one else could do it.
So Oliver, you've been lifting since high school. Is that what you said?
Yeah, since I've been about 13 or 14, it's always been a big thing in my family. They've all been lifting, pumping iron.
So it just kind of it was like a family tradition for you. Like you played sports in high school, presumably.
Yeah, all of those.
It's just been a regular thing for you. So for you, it was never about like improving yourself. Like you were never in a place where like I look bad, I need to look better.
That story. The story that like you look in the mirror and it's like, oh, I'm some scrawny wimp, and I've really gotta pump iron so that I can get the girl, guy or whatever or person that you want to get. But no, never had that. Never.
I feel like that's not what anyone really. I mean, not anyone, but the people who like have bigorexia or anorexia, it doesn't really stem from wanting to impress other people. It's just this like kind of paralyzing solipsism, I think. I really think that's true. It isn't like I want to get the girl or the guy. It's just this like kind of weird, unattainable other thing.
Well, like the bodybuilding like central myth, that core myth of Charles Atlas being real puny and getting pushed and having sand kicked in his face. Then doing some push-ups and going back and punching out the guy that kicked sand in his face and immediately taking the girl. That's very strange. I don't know that that's even happened in like the pre-Me Too era. I don't think that was occurring all that much, where you furiously worked out for 6 months, came and simply beat a man down in front of the person he's dating, and just took that person as your property. I'm not sure.
Well, I have done that, but it's true. I would say it's uncommon. Yeah.
Very uncommon outside of like Genghis Khan times or something.
Or godlike podcast moguls. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
You just take what you want. The Patreon money rolls in.
Oh,
that's right. So, who's the most gruesomely roided out person you've known personally?
But I've met personally.
Feel free to say their full name and address. It's cool.
I've met Ronnie Coleman, but I've met
Who's
him.
that?
He's
That was the
the
Mr.
like
Universe.
7-time,
okay.
8-time Mr. Olympia.
Mr.
There's a
Olympia.
documentary of him on Netflix, also a Vlad Uden documentary of how crippled up he is nowadays. Because he lifted real heavy. We were like, we don't know if the bodybuilders lift heavy or not. Well, he did. He lifted heavy with no off days, way too much volume, way too many reps.
What was he like in person? Paint a
He was in a
picture.
wheelchair. He had the big bulbous veins coming out of shrunken arms. Skin flaps were hanging. He was in a wheelchair. He still had visible abs and was wearing a tank top.
So he was hot, in other words.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he was close to perfection, you might say.
He was that Herculean ideal, yeah. Shriveled and unable to use his legs, yeah.
Yeah. He had very they were almost like they'd once been the largest legs in the history of bodybuilding, on that stage, but now they were shriveled up into almost like pipe cleaners that he had to walk on. He can walk with the two. There's two things they put on in front, and they throw that out in front of themselves, and they kind of like go from side to side. He can walk like that.
Oh, Jesus, that's so bleak.
I hate
thinking
this was
about
once
that.
the world's most perfectly developed man, like 8 years
Folks,
ago.
that's what it takes.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to destroy yourself to touch greatness. All right?
Yeah, you're right. You gotta get your...
I started this podcast from a very dark place, but I thought, you know what? I'll be the martyr the world needs. I will destroy myself to deliver premium content to 18 people with this podcast. I accept that. I accept that on my shoulders. Someone has to make the fucking sacrifice just to give people a glimpse of what human beings are capable of. Just to give people a glimpse of greatness.
What did you say? You wanted to scatter yourself across the surface of the
Yes,
world?
I want to become just energy that is scattered across the surface of the matrix. Yes, thank you very much, Lloyd. That was a part of my manifesto on the first episode.
I remember.
Reducing then, Ralph, reducing yourself to pure podcast energy.
Yes, I am become content. I just want to be only the podcast, only my tweets. You want me to play Luigi's Mansions 3 on Twitch? I'll do that. I will do
motherfucker
anything.
said Luigi,
I'll
man.
cam. You wanna just watch me beat off while I make witty remarks? I'll do my best. I'm here for it. My threshold has been demolished. I've already started the podcast, so plug me in. Fuck
It's
it.
here.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yes.
If you could get that energy to a state where it could simultaneously advertise MeUndies and be on Twitch and be camming, then you would have achieved it. I mean, if your physical body could be gone at that point, you wouldn't need it. Your body,
Fuck my physical body.
it's worthless,
Fuck it. Fuck it. So, Oliver, another thing I wanted to talk to you about, you write a lot about what we'll call, for lack of a better term, hot take culture, by which I mean, we all know what it is, be it a random moron on Twitter or a moron who's for some reason paid to write for a magazine. It's basically like the seeming one-upmanship of trying to come up with the most, I suppose you would say, controversial perspective on a subject, or the most novel, or what have you, It's like, how would you describe it, Lloyd?
Well, to give it in a nutshell, like you just grab like Jessica Valenti, right? And you get her coffeeed up, and then she goes out and sits in front of a keyboard and produces how Hillary Clinton is better for women than Bernie Sanders. Boom, it's out there, and everyone reacts to it. It's not a true take, it's not a perfect take, but it's getting us there.
Sure, but that's at least a take that has like an ideological motivation. But I would describe a hot take as just how would you describe it?
Very intentionally inflammatory. Like
Yes.
something that is kind of designed, consciously or not, to really gin up a lot of feelings.
So what I wanted to ask you, because me and Lloyd get mad on Twitter every day.
Every damn day.
At hot takes.
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you have an insider perspective, because you've been behind the scenes of what I'll call the hot take factory.
I've been toiling. I toiled in there when you met me. I was making plans to exit it.
You were in the hot take mines. So what I wanted to ask you was, I guess, kind of a two-pronged question. Okay, first part is, when people write these hot takes, how sincere is it? How often is it sincere? How cynical is it, maybe? What's the deal there? What's the ratio?
I think it depends on the writer. I know some writers, and I message back and forth with them, feeding them ideas or assisting them, you might say.
But have you known people who are just like, completely cynically, just completely detached, trying to like comprise a take that is hot for the sake of being hot?
Well, yes.
You have.
Oh yeah, there's many. Just Google some legendary hot takes, like it's great that Miss Piggy left Kermit the Frog.
So you're telling me the person who wrote that wasn't operating from a sincere place?
Well, when they have 6 other hot takes coming out that week with different different outlets, and they're talking to you about different hot takes that we can sort of gin up. Probably not. I would say probably not.
See, like here's the thing. Like I can appreciate the joys of like being a contrarian, but to like completely perjure yourself and just like not give a shit, just like. Especially if you're like a journalist, like, your name is attached to this article, but it's like, fuck it, I'm just going to say the most inflammatory thing I can say, not even because I think it's funny, but because I want to attract a maximum amount of eyeballs to it. I can't imagine being that kind of person.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you just think about it, Ralph. You got to put yourself in the right mindset where you can go on and say, like, why Zero Dark 30 is a better movie than Wings of Desire.
I fucking hate Zero Dark 30.
It doesn't matter. A woman directed it, Ralph. That's my hot take. You're set. Check and...
Damn it. I've been checkmated again.
And I'm canceling Wim Wenders. He's canceled. But that's what it is.
The portrayal of sex work in Paris, Texas is abominable.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very problematic movie. Like he's trying to save her.
The age gap between Stanton and the woman, ugh.
Oh, and that speech he gives, that's total mansplaining.
I can't even. I have another question. Have you ever written a hot take in bad faith, such as that?
I've gotten close to it. I wrote one piece for Teen Vogue about how old TV shows are problematic, and I tried to slip a real take in the back door,
So you're trying to smuggle a real take into a cynical, paper-thin hot take.
That's right. It took a year to publish this. It's 1,000 words. It went back and forth in edits for a year.
A year for one article on Teen Vogue?
That's right, for $150.
Oliver, I'm beginning to think that being a professional journalist is not a very lucrative or a rewarding profession.
Sounds like a bad time.
The outlets that seem to get the most exposure pay the least. That's why everyone was clustered at that Mel party, because they pay actual money for their features.
Right, a novel idea, yeah.
Company money, some script, Amazon gift cards.
$150? So you wanted to do this just for exposure?
I wanted to see. I mean, mostly I have good outlets lined up. If I'm writing for the
yeah, because you
Ringer,
got to write for like the Ringer and the Paris Review and the Atlantic and shit.
The Paris Review doesn't pay well at all, but the Ringer pays really, really well. The Atlantic has started paying better, but they're still nowhere near what.
You hear that, Bill Simmons haters? Apparently, it pays very well.
I know that there was a fight over the union over there. I was indifferent to that because I'm a 1099 worker for them, but they're the best, one of the best paying and fairest outlets.
Well, there used to be Grantland, and that does genuinely seem like a labor of love, that whole project over there.
Yeah. I mean, it's got backing from a bunch of different things. I think HBO backs it in some way. You can't call it that. You can call it. It's the successor to Grantland. It truly is. And I knew some of those people, so that's how I got into writing for them. But it's not technically the successor to Grantland because ESPN owns the Grantland archives and controls it because of the way that arrangement was set up.
Yeah, but it seems like the same spirit. The only thing I don't like about The Ringer is that, like, do you have to pretend that every TV show is good and warrants fucking 13 articles a week?
I won't. I'm not going to be writing those things for them. I don't like the premium TV route.
Well, I know you're not a TV writer. I'm just doing a general.
They seem to be. I think possibly because of the HBO.
No, that's their bread and butter. I think is the TV shit. But yeah.
People love TV summaries. I don't know why. Whether they're with the Onion AV Club and they're like
AV Club big time. Yeah.
Yeah, trying to inject politics into their DuckTales episode summaries. They are. Why would anyone read TV summaries? It's like the last thing I want to read.
I just thought of a random question because you mentioned DuckTales. We're all going to answer it. Who's the animated character you've been the most sexually attracted to in your life?
Ooh. Oh boy.
I'll answer first while you guys think.
Pluto and Drag. And the old Fleischer cartoons.
Bluto, Popeye's nemesis, if memory serves. Is that right?
It's unclear. The plot of that particular episode is very strange, but it involves working out at a gym, and for some reason that's a key plot line. And it's only notable because my father pulled me aside to explain to me that every boy has these feelings about that character.
Every single one.
Every one.
I was gonna say my lifelong crush, Bulma from Dragon Ball. Many times as a middle schooler, beating off to the manga. But what about you, Lloyd?
Oh God, this is a tough one. Like I did not have a lot of access to cartoons.
What?
When I was growing up.
Oh, on the beet farm?
Yeah.
As a boy?
Yeah, that's right. So I was watching like Sesame Street, like Wishbone.
Lloyd's going to pick something exceedingly tasteful. What would be the most tasteful animated character to be attracted to?
The one that came to mind, and the one that is probably not very objectionable, is like Kitty Pryde from the X-Men Evolution series.
Not familiar.
On
Describe
Cartoon
her.
Network. You know, like... For a 16-year-old boy, like she's also 16. And,
16 is up there, Lloyd.
you know,
Again, all you had were crops. So.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. What was that even? There was like the night elf from World of Warcraft.
She phases through walls.
No, she phases through walls. Is that the same X?
Yes,
person?
that's the one. Shadowcat is the
that's the name.
X-Men name.
I like the name. I like the name better than the person. I like the idea of a shadow cat.
More like Shadow Gash.
Ooh, Ralph, please. You demean us all.
Ralph, I want to know why you prefer Bulma to Chi-Chi.
Dude, get the fuck out of here.
Everyone
get the
marries
fuck
Chi-Chi.
out of here. Look, I like brunette Launch. I like Launch, but dude, Bulma every time. Chi-Chi is a shrew and a prude. Bulma's a fucking freak, dog. She fucking shows her pussy to Master Roshi like that. You know, that's what I like.
Is Bulma
That was
the
important for a
blonde?
quest, though,
No,
right?
Bulma is the one with the blue hair.
The blue hair.
He
Doesn't know Dragon Ball.
Jesus, how does he not?
Oh, Oliver, I inspired you to write an article about Dragon Ball. Can you speak to that?
Oh yeah. That was at least a piece of.
I gave him a take.
You gave him a
I
take.
gifted him a take.
It was
Please
a
go
good
on.
take. It was a good take on Goku's unusual gender blindness.
He's gender blind. He is. He's a gender neutral character. Because in the very beginning of Dragon Ball, and for those of you who don't know, Dragon Ball Z is it started with Dragon Ball, which came out in the 80s, but for whatever reason, for America, they took the section where Goku's an adult and made a Dragon Ball Z and imported it to the US. But at the very beginning of the story, Goku is a kid, and through chance, he meets Bulma, and he had never encountered a woman before in his life, and while Bulma's asleep, he does what he calls a pat-pat. He pats her crotch and realizes that she doesn't have any male genitalia, and he's befuddled. He doesn't understand. Goku literally has no conception of sexual difference or gender. He grew up in this weird void, and it kind of offhandedly speaks to the notion that gender is a social construct. But Oliver, go on.
But he never really does learn what it is.
He doesn't, no.
Even with Chi-Chi, she sort of just takes him over.
And it's such a rich text because Goku's mentor is Master Roshi, whose primary trait is that he's overwhelmingly horny, but Goku has not a shred of horniness in his body. He's the least horny character in fiction. So it's a really rich text.
I mean, if you read the comics, in fact,
manga as I have.
Krillin reacts to Master Roshi's horn dog ways.
Oh, Krillin's also horny.
Yeah, he is. He's a bit of a creep.
And he ends up fucking Android 18, who is also hot, but not as hot as Bulma in her prime.
And much more powerful than him, apparently.
No, yes, Android 18, I can confirm, is much more powerful than Krillin. Yeah.
I don't think that Goku ever corrects Master Roshi. He never tells him to stop. But he also doesn't seem to know what he's doing.
Well, no, he doesn't, because Goku has no sexual knowledge, so he doesn't realize when Master Roshi is being a perv.
I think he's a good lesson type of character for all of us now. I mean,
Goku is woke. Goku is woke.
We're in a lot of gender trouble right now, but he's already gone beyond any gender, or maybe he's before any gender. But one way or the other, he's outside of it.
Well, it's fucked up that he has such a poor understanding of social mores that it's like a joke in the early going that he pats everyone on the crotch, that is sexual assault. But in his heart of hearts, he is woke by today's standards in his understanding of gender and sexuality.
Yeah. I mean, he should have been pulled aside and taught about consent, of course, probably via a hot take in the New York Times or something like that. But other than that, it's because it's coming from a place of no understanding.
Yes.
You really can't hold it against him. He seems to know nothing, and I think that's perfect with a blank slate.
Well, if I had the 7 magic Dragon Balls, I would wish to go back in time and school Goku on his more problematic tendencies. But Oliver,
Jeez, I really have to come up to speed on Dragon Ball if I'm going to continue to participate in this podcast. This is a major weakness. I am just sitting on the sidelines here. I got nothing.
I'm sorry, Lloyd.
Watch it.
Oliver, let's think. Who would Lloyd be in the Dragon Ball universe?
Oh boy,
someone responsible. Maybe Piccolo.
But he's a bad guy, though.
Is Piccolo a bad?
No, he
Piccolo's,
becomes a good guy. He becomes one of the goodest of guys.
He becomes like an average guy. He becomes like a mentor guy.
No, Oliver, you're wrong. He becomes one of the Z fighters very early in Z.
Is he the green alien with?
He's the green alien, but he's also coded as black, so it might be problematic if Lloyd is Piccolo.
Problematic.
Maybe Tien Shin.
Is he? Wait,
you're
saying Piccolo the green alien is coded as black?
I'm not going to get into it on this episode, but I swear to God, yes.
Oh boy. Well,
maybe Tien Shinhan. Maybe Tien Shinhan.
I have no idea who that is.
Okay.
I was there
anyway,
for Piccolo.
Oliver, your general gripes about this hot take culture. Do you care to bloviate?
Oh, I find it fascinating. There's whole careers that consist of nothing but issuing takes. I mean, major millennial media figures and even some older media figures can just get online and, churn out these takes, and that seems to be their entire body of work. They're kind of to writing what the Marvel, the MCU is to filmmaking. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like a death of any kind of sincerity.
Just an impassive, yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because I have spent so many hours just quietly in a room with all the lights on, privately being mad at a tweet. But at this junction in my life, I feel like you gotta wake up pretty early in the morning to craft a take that actually makes me mad. And I'm wondering if we've crossed the river. Is it even possible, and Lloyd, you can answer this too, is it even possible to have a properly hot take anymore, or has it become so saturated that it's just all desensitized, it's all relative?
Well, for my part, I see a lot of
Have we reached the what's the word, just hot take singularity? It's like,
I mean, I think hot takes are kind of formulated as traps for bringing out bad responses to hot takes, trying to reveal some kind of implicit bias in the responder's reaction to this hot take, and that is used as additional grist for the hot take mill.
Sure. But have we reached a point where you could no longer create a take that really makes a dent? Because I feel like we've seen the hottest of takes. We've seen people that have tried to include pedophiles and the queer movement and this and that. Is there really? You understand what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, I would for that example, I don't think that's ever been done in a good faith way. That's always been.
I mean, that is the question. But I'm assuming
somebody will roll that take out. If it hasn't been done in semi-good faith, it'll be done eventually. There's somebody sitting behind a keyboard waiting for that ball to drop.
And it doesn't matter if it's in good or bad faith. It's been posted. I'm saying, is there a hot take you can post that still registers as a hot take after all this hot takery?
There's no take that's hot enough to heat me up at this point.
No, me neither. Yeah, I'm wondering if that's the consensus. Yeah.
I don't know about Lloyd, though. I mean, maybe Lloyd can still be upset with a take.
When was the last time you were scandalized by a take?
When I was upset with a take. I mean,
you can't remember off the top of your head.
I think the kind of hot take we're talking about. I mean, Oliver, you brought up like Jessica Valenti, people like this who are kind of
That one that went viral. What was that one that went viral? That it was like, if a friend is asking you for help, but you don't have the space.
The emotional availability bandwidth.
Unbelievable. You know what's hilarious
like
about that is that like it used to be like the very earnest people I was aware of would say things like, have you done something good for someone today? Or always remember, you never know what someone's going through. And I'd be like, yeah, I know. But now the very earnest people are like, being nice to your friends is low-key toxic. And I'm just like, oh, all right, what?
Oh, no. I mean, I don't get mad at that
it's
stuff.
Emotional labor. It's emotional.
Exactly. Oh, my God, don't get me started on the discourse of emotional labor. But Lloyd, what was your point? I'm sorry.
I mean, that is the incorrect definition of emotional labor. And a lot of this stuff kind of gets churned up and, brought into the politics of people who don't have a lot of scruples, and it becomes ammunition for.
I also think it's a minority of people who are very online.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't get mad at this stuff. I kind of recognize it as a grift pretty quickly.
You're too much of a wizened online sage.
I'm afraid so. I am denied the thrill of anger.
Denied even of the thrill of anger.
I know. I feel nothing. Oof. It's dark.
God.
It's dark, let me tell you.
So why don't we close this out with a game?
A game?
I want us to take turns, lightning round, trying to come up with hot takes. Who wants to go first?
Ooh. I got one. I got one. Everyone should sit down to pee except for people who are not cis male. Like if you have had the procedures to pee standing up, you can do it. Everybody else needs to sit.
Interesting. So like as an act of solidarity. Okay, mine is only a mayo-ass white boy would co-sign the politics of race mixing. Only they would have the audacity to expect a POC to race mix with their colonizer ass. The politics of race mixing is controlled by white people, and you have to imagine that being said by a white woman on Twitter. Lloyd,
if you're a white male and you don't take steroids, you are denying yourself the potential to protect, POCs and women.
Very true.
So that's kind of messed
true.
up.
You're doing a disservice if you're not juicing.
Yeah.
To better defend against the bad ones.
The bad ones. That's exactly right.
Oliver, you got another one on the docket?
Oh yeah, I've got another one here. The only way to show that you truly have no genital preference transphobia is to just only have sex with genitals that you are not attracted to while pretending they are the ones that you like.
Okay. A little wordy. Mine's...
Basically, you've got to go, if you like one, you've got to go for the other, but pretend it's the one you like.
Okay. I'll say that Saudi Arabia is good.
Ooh, nice. They're helping the people over there. They got the colleges, the sand.
They got the orb. They got the sword dance.
Check the sheets. All of it.
And I'll simply say this has been the Feeling Well podcast. This has been a lot of fun.
Oliver, where can we find you?
You can find me at oliverbateman.com, at Mustache Club US on Twitter, and in the virtual pages of The Ringer Male Magazine, and the actual pages of next month's Men's Health, where I'll have an article in there about asking for help.
All right, and you can follow us on Twitter at FeelingWellPod. You can follow Lloyd at Void Howler. You can follow me at PLS, God Help Me PLS, and at Ralph Moffatone on Instagram. Oliver, thank you very much for being our first ever guest. I'm waiting for you to say it was a pleasure, Ralph.
I'm sure he had a great time.
And Lloyd, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, Ralph.
Bye, folks.